perfect place to be. Of course, we do. Yeah. And you say you speak many languages, right? Which language do you speak? Okay. It is spoken only in Fiji, or are there other places where it's really just in Fiji? Thank you. Where? Oh, amazing. Okay. Yeah. You detect a little English accent in there too. How long did you live in England? About 8 years. 8 years? Oh, like Andrew, he'll say that. I'm from South Pole, so. South Pole. Yeah. Very awesome. Yeah. Andrew, Ray, Andrew. And we used to, then we moved to Wolverhampton. Okay. Because of Indian parents. Yeah, yeah. Birmingham. Yeah. Usually are fruit, usually the fruit people. And then Rex says, they got fruit. No, I know. Good. Oh. Yeah, I had to go to a different Can you read Hindi? Yes, I can read and write. Amazing. Because you live there? My parents are from India. Oh, okay, wow. Yes, and my parents, after they got married, they moved to Fiji Islands. I see. And that's where they got married and got 9 children. 9. And you're number 7. I am the 9th. You're the number 9. The youngest. Yes. They're from Efron Kingston. Incredible. Yeah. And the Fiji language, is there anything that looks like it? What's the nearest language? There's Samoan. Okay, so from other islands, I guess. Yeah, and they have different dialects. Amazing. But Fijian English is only spoken in Fiji, yeah. But they have some same terms with Samoan and Philippines. Okay. Like okay. English and Spanish. Yeah. Okay. Remember my kids will get their batteries. Is it time to go? Is it what time is it? 12:53. Oh yeah, maybe I'll go over there. Yeah, I'll go over there. Bonjour madame. Ça va? Monsieur, comment ça va? Très bien. Le petit chien est là ou pas? Le petit chien est dans la voiture? Non. Non, il est à la maison. Là, ça c'est bien. Ah, ça c'est bien. I would be if I was speaking, but God is speaking through me, so maybe he's nervous. Okay. just a speaker. I would be praying. Just like the speaker is not nervous. Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, I actually have I'm Melissa. Oh, hi. And I'm Cindy Kelly's friend. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, great. Cool. And your name is? Alexander. Alexander. Yes, great. Yes. Oh, great. Good. I'm really looking forward to it. No, but for sure. I remember a long time ago when I was very nervous, but you could tell it's really just ego that gets nervous. Like what I have to say. But if you really have if you love your audience, if you whatever, if you have a presentation in school, in the office, if you really love, then it's not about you. It's about really that love. And I remember being very nervous early on, and as a student, and getting the heartbeat and stuff. And then I had such a sense of love that I found myself speaking slowly, looking at people, not having the heartbeat. It was just amazing. So that taught me that it's really not about us. It's but the little voice in our head makes us about what they're going to think, and that's where it comes. But if it's not there, there is nothing to bother you. So what do you do? Good. I'm a dentist. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. At the end of my career, just retired from my private practice. Oh, excellent. And it's hard because every day you're seen as a mom or as a wife, or people look at you as something. But when the speaker just to let go of ego, really, just completely go and let your message speak, and you and your message is not about making yourself look good. Your message is not about gaining anything. Your message is like what you want to say has value. You want to share it, and that's what does it. And it should be normal that you walk there as you're speaking now. It's just very normal. And yeah,
good.
No, it's
Good.
but it needs some preparation to get out of the way because it's not about me. It's about me.
I'm going to use that piece of information.
No, it makes a big difference. But it goes really from a bit nervous to be absolutely not nervous at all. It's not even always better. No, it's really you feel like it's very very comfortable. And, no, it's gonna be good.
Thank you for that nice tip.
I think it's not about impressing. It's really about expressing. So you express and then you speak with your heart and also I think some of the lower mental enemies. If you see your presentation as something special, like if I was to ask you what is it all about, you would tell me what it's all about. You don't have notes, so you'll tell me. You feel confident just to see your presentation in front of many people as just like in your kitchen. You're just like because people love the authenticity when it's natural. Not say, okay, yeah, I'm a dentist, so I know, and this sense of something's happening. This ego again. Just no. I want to write this talk, so it was really helpful to me, those ideas, and I'm retired now, and I love those ideas, so I'm talking about this and this and this, and I really liked it. And first idea is this, and then you can see you're just like in your kitchen with friends, and I think it helps lower the mental thing of, on Wednesday, the second I'm on stage, and then so you'll be amazing. You'll be amazing. But if you don't think of it, or if you neglect it, we'll be nervous. Right. If you don't do it, yes. Right. But if we don't, it's like if you don't clean your dishes, they'll be dirty. But if you clean them, they'll be clean.
Well, that's what I thought is actually Christian Science is very practical.
Yeah, of course.
It's very common sense.
No, of course.
If you're common sense, it will flow.
No, it's about love. It's about love. You're loving. So you love your audience. You love. So what's your main theme for your talk? What's the...
I'm going to be talking to, I'm going to go to Kenya.
Okay.
And I'm speaking at a girls' school, high school age, and I'm going to be speaking about preventive dentistry.
Oh, no, you'll love it.
Prevention, their health, how to take care of themselves.
So you'll do well.
You'll do well. Really good.
No, and you'll do well. And it is because you want them to do a good job. You want them to make mistakes. You want them to learn from your mistakes. So it's just really love and knowing that they have a different language too. So you'll speak slowly because they'll it'll be good. You'll be good, and you'll love it. And it's good because you feel it's giving. Well,
I'm already happy. My heart is there. Yeah. Everything.
It just false belief about public speaking. That's the one who will do that is the one who feels he's someone. Like I'm someone, I'm going to say something, and he'll get the thing. It may take pills or something, or just replace it with love, and you'll be amazing. Oh, you'll be good. I wish I could be there to sit.
Thank you. I might see you in the audience.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
It's all about love. Love doesn't get nervous.
When you were talking to us again.
Yeah, it sounds good. Oh, amazing. Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
You mentioned that last time you were here.
Still sounds familiar.
It is.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I know it's there.
I think the applesauce is baby applesauce and string cheese. Child.
Good afternoon and welcome. Andrew's going to play some introductory music to give us a bit of time for people to arrive, the late stragglers to arrive, and for everybody to get settled down. So he's going to do a little short bit of his music. Mr. Andrew Lewis from London, England.
As each day unfolds, we can rest. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are ordered. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are blessed. We can know as each day unfolds. We can know as each day unfolds. Within God's haven I abide, above confusion, fear and strife, in love and serenity I confide. God's tender care will guide my life. As each day unfolds, we can rest. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are ordered. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are blessed. We can know as each day unfolds. Though mortal life may hurry by, a constant rush through space and time, above the pressure I can fly, and calmly know God's peace is mine, and calmly know God's peace is mine. As each day unfolds, we can rest. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are ordered. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are blessed. We can know as each day unfolds. Though others rush on through the race, I know God's goodness never will cease. And trusting in His perfect grace, I am complete within a peace. I am complete within a peace. As each day unfolds, we can rest. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are ordered. As each day unfolds, we know our lives are blessed. We can know as each day unfolds. We can know as each day unfolds. This is a brand new song, written specially for Patty's talk. It's called God's Sight. Look in the mirror, what do I see? Is that image before me looking back really me? Me with my scars from the past, me with my uncertain future. Surely there's more under the surface. If I dive deeper, then I shall see. If I dive deeper to see what God really sees. In God's sight, man is perfect, no blemish, pure and free. In God's sight, there's no sickness, no shame applied to me. Not born of dust, not shaped by fear, but upheld by love, upheld by love forever near. In God's sight, I am perfect, no doubt, no worldly lies. In God's sight, the reflections whole, there can be no disguise. Not born of dust, not shaped by fear, upheld by love, upheld by love, forever near. Upheld by love, forever near. So what of the face in the mirror? What of that image I see? I know now that's not true reflection, or the way that God sees me. I'll take off the mask, remove the disguise, start seeing myself through God's eyes. No waiting heart, no wondering how, for God's love is present right here, right now. Not born of dust, not shaped by fear, upheld by love, seen through His eyes. See myself, Seen through his eyes, see yourself. Seen through his eyes. Okay, one more before we hear from Patty. This is my current favorite song, and it's a reworking of Mary Baker Eddy's Shepherd Show Me How to Go. I don't know about you, but that was a hymn that I always went to as a youngster in Sunday school. 2 hymns in particular. Shepherd, show me how to go o'er the hillside steep, and O gentle presence, peace and joy and power. 2 really powerful sentences, and they're very easy to remember when you're 5 and 6, but they're also very easy to remember when you're not 5 or 6. Feed my sheep, heal the lost, lift the weary, bear the cross, love unchanging, deep and true. Shepherd, let me follow. Let me follow you. When the storms begin to rise, hold me safe with gentle ties. In your presence doubt will cease. You restore my soul in peace, not in fear and not in pride. Only love will be my guide. Feed my sheep, heal the lost, lift the weary, bear the cross, love unchanging, deep, deep and true. Shepherd, let me follow, let me follow you. Love is patient, love is kind. Love will heal the heart and mind, freely given, freely shown. In your grace, I'm not alone. Feed my sheep, heal the lost, lift the weary, bear the cross, love unchanging, deep, deep and true. Shepherd, let me follow, follow you. Shepherd, let me follow, follow you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. If you have something in your pocket that makes noise, could you please turn it off, just so we don't capture it. Thank you, Andrew Brewis, andrewdbrewis.com, if you want to find more about what he has. He also has some offerings when we take a break back in the back room of his CDs and USB sticks and things like that for you to enjoy. Welcome to our 11th. Doesn't seem possible. Healing Solutions to All Mankind. That's a different title, what we have up there. Healing Solutions to Life's Challenges. The other one works too. We're pleased today to have with us Patty Woodard from Dallas, Texas. Patty's originally from New York, has spent some time in California, currently lives in Dallas, has lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil. World traveler, likes to travel, likes to do crazy things. She's also involved in the prison ministry, visiting prisons. This time we weren't able to get her into prison, but we will at some point. So I would like to welcome her to deliver her talk, Spiritual Healing Today. Patty.
Well, thank you, Joe, and the members of First Church of Christ Scientists here in South Lake Tahoe. And thank you for writing a song for me. Appreciate it. And I'm really grateful that you've all come out today in this beautiful day to learn more, think more about spiritual healing today. So I'd like to begin this talk with doing a little exercise together. Let's imagine that you're asked to connect all the dots on a 3x3 grid without your pencil leaving the paper. Just in case you can't imagine, here it is, okay? Now you may be thinking, there's no answer to this. There is. There really is an answer, and some of you out there may know it. The answer is, if you draw this first line, let's get this right side up, speaking of being wild and crazy. If you draw the first line going outside the boxes, then you can connect all the dots. Well, this little puzzle speaks to me about life. How often do we think that there is no way out of a situation? It could be a relationship, a financial difficulty, and yet a man who lived 2,000 years ago from humble beginnings had the answer to all of life's challenges. His very life marked the beginning of a new calendar year. Jesus wasn't about just finding a creative solution to make our life better. His answer is and was being outside the box. This being that Jesus taught and practiced is reality itself. Is something not working? I guess something's not working. Okay. So this being that Jesus taught and practiced is reality, or what was known in those times as the kingdom of heaven. So from this perspective, God is the sole creator of the universe. And to bring this idea home, he further said, "Call no man on earth your father, for one which is in heaven is our Father." Actually, what I really wanted to quote was another statement of Jesus. "You are as perfect as your divine parent is perfect." So just think what this means for a moment. That you are the very offspring of God, that God is the very source and substance of your life. And it was from this standpoint that Jesus healed. Now, even his disciples, going along with the crowd thinking of that time, were in doubt. Like when they asked Jesus, well, what do I have to do to be saved? Or what do I have to do to enter this kingdom of heaven? And Jesus' reply was, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Jesus healed what was thought the impossible of his time. He broke through all the boxes of race, class, gender, injustice, and he healed. This is what I'll be talking about for the next 50 minutes. These breaking through the boxes of those times and all times. In breaking through these boxes, I will also substantiate this by sharing healings, that being based on the same principle that Jesus healed by, we can still heal. So in discussing these ideas, this is tricky with one hand. In discussing these ideas, I'll be referring to two books, the Bible, Health with Key to the Scriptures. This keeps going in and out, doesn't it? No? Okay. It sounds it to me. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Eddy, too, was looking for answers for life's challenges. She had spent half a lifetime as an invalid and suffered huge personal loss. And I'll talk about Mary Baker Eddy in her book later. But what she discovered was outside of conventional thinking of these times and those times, and that's what Jesus discovered as well. That the solution to all of our problems is outside of the box, so to speak. Before getting into some of these concepts of healing and what brings healing, I'd like to share a healing of a friend. And before getting into that healing, let me just give you a little background of this friend. This friend walked into a Christian Science reading room one day. And a reading room is a lot like a bookstore, but more. It's a quiet place to study and pray and be inspired, and yes, to be healed. So my friend many years ago walked into a Christian Science bookstore and asked, reading room I should say, and asked if we had a copy of this book, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. I handed him a copy, and he began leafing through the pages. I invited him to sit down, and as he sat down and was reading some of these pages, he began asking questions. And then as he read, he thoughtfully looked up and said, I have known this. This is what is true, that God is love. It's written in every heart, and everyone knows this. He left with 2 copies of Science and Health, one for himself and one for his spouse. Shortly thereafter, he began attending our local Christian Science church. And shortly after adopting 2 babies, he began bringing them to our Sunday school. Soon thereafter, well, I want to interject here before a soon whereafter, he and his young family had many wonderful healings. He himself had a healing of a serious back condition that was diagnosed to need surgery. How did he know? He's a medical doctor, an anesthesiologist. So here's what happened. As he was lying in bed one night in excruciating pain, deciding, should I go to the emergency room now or should I wait till morning? And as happens at night, and I'm sure it's happened to many of you here in this room and out there. As he laid in bed, all these what-ifs started circling in his mind. Well, if I wait till morning, what about the patients that I've scheduled to anesthetize? Would it be safe to go into work? Then he also wondered, well, it's going to be 6 weeks or longer of rehab. How would this affect the family? How would it affect our finances? And what's wrong? And I couldn't return to work. With that, he heard his 3-year-old screaming from his bedroom down the hall. And he leapt out of bed, ran down the hall to find his 3-year-old pointing. There's a monster. There's a monster under my bed. Well, calmly, my friend sat down on the edge of the bed and started talking to his young son about fear. That the monster was just fear in his own head. It wasn't real. Very shortly, his son fell asleep, and my friend walked back down the hall. As he walked down the hall, he heard these words in his own mind. I was talking to you. It's all fear. It's unreal. With that, in total amazement, my friend realized his back pain was gone. Not better, not less, gone. As he laid back in bed, he realized how foolish I had been by not trusting, in the first place, God, and how grateful I am for this lesson and this healing. And this back condition has never returned. So now for a more recent healing of his family. A couple years ago, he called me up. That same son is now 15, and he explained that his son had had a sports injury and had been taken to a doctor. His spouse was adamant that the son have what the doctor recommended. The doctor was absolutely vehement that the son needed surgery. My friend was just as adamant about relying on prayer for this healing. I found myself saying to him, wait a second. You need to have an honest discussion with your spouse. He is God's son too. He is both of your sons, and you both want what's best for your son. With that, I could hear my friend exhale as he let go. And then we started talking about his own quick healing of many years ago of that back condition. He added, oh, I think I need to add that to the conversation and tell my young son about this. I then was inspired to add, whether your son has surgery or not, he can never be separated from God. He is God's own child. With that, my friend said, got it, and he hung up the phone. What he got, there was a shift in his thinking. He had taken those words that I had said to heart. And a few days later, I received this text message from my friend. I saw the surgeon yesterday who had evaluated our son. The surgeon said, his MRI shows no fracture, despite my confidence. This is something else that my friend added. He was like, this surgeon was really adamant and really didn't even like writing this. Despite my confidence in saying, I was sure that's what he had based on 30 years of experience. My friend continued, with God, all things are possible. Such a healing, and we thank you. So what happened? What was this shift in thought? It shifted from my friend's own fears and what he was doing to what God has done. He understood that God had made his son in God's own image, in God's own likeness, and he could rely on this truth. He is God's idea, the idea of infinite good. Nothing could change that. And as this idea of infinite good, his true spirituality was untouched, never changed. This brought healing. There was nothing done between doctor visits, no medication. These prayers alone healed this young man. So back to the statement of Jesus. All things are possible to God. In the scriptures, we learn that God is spirit, is life, truth, and love. These are synonymous with God. They are his attributes. And God being the only one, every attribute of God's must be expressed. And just to name a few, honesty, justice, goodness, beauty, integrity, and so on. So we, as God's ideas, must express every single one of these qualities. So let's take, for example, that word spirit. Now, spirit isn't some spooky word for something floating out there. Its meaning in the Greek and the Hebrew is breath or wind. So it indicates that God is encircling all, is present, and is power. Now, we don't see the wind, but we can feel its effect. We can feel the gentle breeze on our cheek, or see the leaves rustling because of the wind. And so it is with every attribute of God, with every name of God. We can feel the love of love, know the truth of truth, experience the good of good, and certainly live the life that is God, that is life itself. So, what about that little word possible? Possible is one of those words that is just so misunderstood. It doesn't mean maybe, like we hear about the weather. There's the possibility of afternoon thunderstorms, or there's a 40% chance of sunshine. Possible means power. It means exactly that. So God being the only power, it would follow that God is the only power source. That each of us, everyone, has the same power source. We reflect spirit. So spirit being the only power source is the only strength, all action, our abilities and capabilities. Those abilities and capabilities, just pause for a moment, they're ours. They include power. There's a divine logic to it, that all things are possible to God. Now, we may not get this logic about God being the only power, but it, like learning anything new, it will come step by step, whether it's swimming, rock climbing, new math, or tech. It comes step by step. It's a discovery. I've also learned that healing in Christian Science, it's not about changing material conditions or doing some sort of mental, personal manipulation. What Christian Science is doing, it's showing us that we are not confined, living within those boxes, trying to find a way out. It's showing us what is already present and true about ourselves and God. It's like those spectacular photos that are sent back from the Webb telescope. The stars and the galaxies were always there in all their beauty and splendor and form. It just took a powerful telescope to show us, a powerful lens. And this new lens of the Webb, it records in longer wavelengths that are invisible to the naked eye. And these wavelengths, they pierce through the dust and the gases that would distort those stars and galaxies. Even those who worked on the Webb telescope are amazed by what they're seeing and learning from it. And so it is with prayer. Prayer acts like a lens, piercing through and showing us what is actually there. And it's often through prayerful moments that we get these new ideas with the light of truth shining on them. And these ideas, they're not confined, this prayer is not confined to a certain place or time, but we can turn to God anytime. I remember the time that I was doing some pretty mundane housework when these words, I was not even familiar with them, when these words came to me. You were there when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. In that moment, I glimpsed my spiritual, eternal, immortal being. I was there. I was in awe of the sheer dimension and harmony of it, the reality and the substantiability of it. I was there. These fresh ideas that we receive from God are known as the Christ. The Christ is the true idea of God, and nothing can separate us from this Christ. It was this title that Jesus was given because of how, well, not just to, excuse me a sec. Okay. So as I was saying, Jesus was given the title of Christ Jesus, not just to distinguish him from all those other Jesuses out there, because it was a pretty common name, but because of how uniquely he lived his oneness with his divine parent. And we all have this same parent. So this Christ truth is still animating us, still with us, freeing us and healing us in innumerable ways. Let me answer a question about those innumerable ways that Christian Science heals. It's a question that I'm often asked because I rely on Christian Science for healing. But Patty, what if it was really something serious? My answer, I'll answer as I did as a young mom because I still answer it the same way. I really couldn't say what I would do or a what if answer. I would have to listen to what God was telling me to do. This answer always satisfied my friends, and it satisfied me too. And looking back on all these years, what I can say is that Christian Science healed many serious conditions. There was a high temperature with extreme arm swelling that was healed in minutes, anxiety attacks, depression, behavioral and learning disabilities, broken bones, and more. That's just a few of them. Let me share one of those experiences. What would you do if it was something serious? We were whitewater. Well, let me back up a second and add a couple questions for you all out there. Let's turn this question on its head. What would you do? Let's just suppose that you were out in the wilderness without your cell phone, or it was out of range. Then what? Well, Christian scientists who have been out in the wilderness have found that God really does answer the call, so to speak. Heals a sudden illness, or leads the way out of a forest fire, or also healing a broken bone. I had one of those wilderness experiences when we were living in Brazil and we were whitewater rafting. I can still see and feel the beauty of that day and how the sunlight just danced and sparkled off the water. After we had gone through the rapids, and I want to add here too that our children at that time were still of elementary school age. So after going through the rapids, the oarsman put up his oars and said that we were free to jump out of the boat and just bob along behind it. But he also pointed out that there was a tree on the far side of the river that to stay away from, that people had drowned there. There was an eddy, and once caught in it, people had drowned. It was far enough away. It was not going to be a temptation at all. So we stayed behind the boat, enjoyed the view bouncing along. And then as I looked to that far side of the river, I saw one of our mates that were on the boat, her arms flailing nearby that tree. She was caught in the eddy. I had a decision to make at that moment, either watch her drown or go over and try to help her. I turned to my husband and said, stay close to the children, and off I went. As I pushed her out of the eddy, I suddenly found myself down deep. There was no more sparkle to the water. In that moment, I also saw my children in full color bobbing down the river behind that boat. In that darkness, death was right there, presenting itself. But I said, no matter what, I could not, would not accept death. Since being a questioning teenager and having walked into a Christian Science Sunday school, I had been learning and proving to myself in healing that life is God. So I just would not accept death, even if I didn't understand all of life's allness. So with that, I mentally protested, "Oh God." Now this "oh God" wasn't a pleading with God. It was acknowledging that God is right here, that life, being all, was present, no matter what. In that instant, I found myself on the surface. No effort of my own. There was no movement of my arms or legs or movement of the water. I was free in the surface, in that glorious sunshine once again. Now, those of you out there may not find yourself at the bottom of a river facing death, but death, age, or accident might be threatening you or a neighbor by a prognosis or a diagnosis. And what I can say is it's never too late to turn to God. I've learned that God is a very present help in trouble. That's what a psalmist had learned long ago, and that's what's throughout the scriptures. God leading
all of his children through whatever wilderness it might be and freeing them. So what is my answer to, Patty, what if it was something serious? Well, let me answer some words from Science and Health. The depth, breadth, height, might, majesty, and glory of infinite love fill all space. That is enough. Well, if divine love is enough, then why all this emphasis on spiritual healing? Jesus had the answer. When his disciples came back, he had sent out 70 disciples, and when they came back, they were just all jumping for joy with all that they had healed. And yet, Jesus rebuked them. He said, don't celebrate this, but the fact that your names are written in the kingdom of heaven. In saying this, well, let me add something before getting to the end of that. A word or two about names. Names in biblical times and even today would suggest a person's nature and their attributes. So that's what Jesus was reminding the disciples about, that it wasn't them that was changing a situation. It wasn't like they were moving the dots around, but their names, their nature of each individual healed was already within the kingdom of heaven, already perfect right now. Mary Baker Eddy said something very similar to this, answering this question about, well, then why is spiritual healing? Why is it so important? She said, and it surprises people, she wrote it in another book, spiritual healing is the smallest part of Christian Science. And then she links it to, it's the bugle call. Well, what does a bugle call do? There's no sleeping through it. There's no hitting your snooze alarm for it. It wakes us up and it moves us. And in the case that we're speaking about today, spiritual healing, we wake up to our real being. And as we do that, we realize that healing isn't selfish. It's really quite the opposite. It's an unselfing, finding all in God, in God's allness. So in finding all there in the allness of God, we also see that loving our neighbor is natural to us. It's indigenous. And it's just the way things actually are. So what has this got to do with the world? Everything. It's often after healing that you'll hear an individual say, this is the time they learned more love, patience, and an old sense of themselves just dropped away. It might have been a quick temper, prejudice, pride, drinking, or whatever the sin may be. And Christian Science doesn't require or even acknowledge sin as a starting point. What Christian Science is seeing, it's like that Webb telescope. It's seeing through to that sinless, innocent, perfect man. And as we do that, we find more love, more unity, and solutions to whatever the problem might be, whether it's in our family or work or our community, our country, or the world. And it's because of one intrepid woman that we can heal today in 2025 as in Jesus's times. Mary Baker Eddy discovered Christian Science. She was a thinker. And this in the 1890s, 1860s, I should say, well, all the way through until the early 20th century. This was really thought quite radical for a woman. In fact, some people even thought unhealthy. So what she discovered was equally revolutionary. She had her bugle call moment in 1866. She had suffered an accident that no one expected her to recover from. And she asked for her Bible, and in reading one of Jesus's healings, she caught a glimpse of spiritual reality, life in and of spirit. This led to her rapid recovery and also the healing of half a lifetime of invalidism, that's a hard one to say, and grief. What she discovered was truth itself. Life in and of spirit. And for the next 3 years, she continued studying her Bible, wanting to know how she could share this idea, how to help others. Talk about being unselfish. Well, what she discovered was the same principle that Jesus based healing upon. This principle being love, guiding and guarding the universe. Now, she was not only known as a founder of the church and an author of this book, but also as a healer. There are hundreds of accounts of her healings. And one of those accounts, a doctor who was in attendance had given up on the patient, had predicted her death. But seeing Eddy praying for her and healing her and her being healed right then and there encouraged Eddy to write a book. And Eddy, turning to God, later did write this book. It was Eddy's great love for humanity that wrote the book that caused her to labor for over 30 years, hundreds of editions, so that she would get it right for mankind. In one of the most recent editions of hers back then, she included a chapter entitled Fruitage. And it's 100 pages of people like you and I who were healed by just reading the book. And then there were those who were healed and read the book just to disprove it. So this book that she wrote, she dedicated it. It wasn't just for those looking for a new religion, quite the contrary. She dedicated it to those honest seekers for truth. Aren't we all looking for the truth that will heal us and give us happiness? Now, you may not have heard of Mary Baker Eddy until today, but the people of her day were really interested in her church and what she had to say. What she had to say about a myriad of topics, whether it was about Christmas, war, or politics. And so, with many requests about politics and what were her politics, in 1908, which is an important political year in US history, she issued this press release. I am asked, what are my politics? And her reply, in reality, I have none, but to support a righteous government, to love God supremely, and my neighbor as myself. She well understood the need for honest reporting. Not so unlike these days. Those days were full of yellow journalism. So Eddy, in her 87th year, can you imagine, started a worldwide newspaper called the Christian Science Monitor. And its mission, I better read it to get it exactly right. I don't want to paraphrase. Its mission, the object of the monitor, is to injure no man, but to bless all mankind. This is still its mission, to bless all mankind. So, there's time for one more question. Why not just take a pill and be done with it? Well, one answer is taking a pill doesn't necessarily mean you are done with the problem. Managing pain also doesn't mean you are done with the problem. And Jesus wasn't about treating symptoms. He saw beyond the dust, the doubt, the fears, and what he saw was God's creation, intact, perfect God and perfect man, and this healed. Now, there may be times that an individual has prayed with all earnesty for some time and may feel discouraged and says, I think I'm just going to take a pill for relief. This was what happened with a friend of mine. Once she had found out that a good friend of hers had committed suicide, and she began to fear that she might do the same thing. She returned to attending her local Christian Science Sunday school. There she began to find answers and also a hope, the possibility of being healed. She graduated from high school with all A's, ran track for a prestigious university, had boyfriends and girlfriends, landed a dream job upon graduating from college, but she was not fully free of these anxiety attacks. She did continue to study Christian Science. When these attacks became so severe, she decided, I'm just going to take a pill for relief. After a year being on this medication and also seeing a psychologist, she said she wasn't feeling any better. In fact, she was feeling worse. And so she decided to drop the medication, discontinue seeing the psychologist, and shortly thereafter, she was healed. Well, recently we had a phone call. It had been 3 years since her healing, so I really wanted to know what had happened. What she told me is that she was feeling even more terrified. She was feeling alone, like she had to figure this out all by herself with no help. And then this came to her. It dawned on her. I could trust truth. I didn't need to make this work. It wasn't some sort of experiment that I needed to find the solution. I don't need to be driven by fear. It's the allness of God that makes us fearless. So as she continued trusting truth, she realized about God's grace, that God's grace isn't something out there to be earned. It's present right here and right now. And shortly thereafter, the Christ truth pierced through that darkness of hers. And she found, well, here are the exact words. This is your wonderful life. It was that Christ truth that pierced through the darkness, that showed her that she's the loved of loved, and she was healed. Now, what took so long for this healing? This I really wanted to know. What she said was she had not accepted the fullness of Jesus' words, which are basic to Christian Science. You are as perfect as your divine parent is perfect. I am the beloved daughter of God. God is happy, satisfied with me. She realized that she had not admitted that she is God's own spiritual idea. Now, in science, there's no acceptance of a halfway truth, a halfway position. I mean, could you imagine those individuals who worked on the Webb telescope just accepting half of physics, or perhaps half of one of those ultra-ray lights? A stated proposition will prove the whole of it. And so it is with Christian Science, accepting the truth of it. Also, let's not be like children on a trip, wondering and asking, when are we going to get there? We are there. We've arrived. We've been guaranteed right from that first chapter of the Bible. And God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. It is this acceptance to grab hold of that we indeed are the sons and daughters of God. So I hope this healing, my friend's account, helps those of you out there who may be struggling with a long-term difficulty or wondering, when will I be healed? As my friend found out, it's the wrong question. Again, let's accept the fact that we are God's own spiritual idea. So these healings that I've shared this afternoon, they prove that Christian Science is no passing fad. There are many families that have been relying on Christian Science for healing for over 6 generations. And just recently, during this past year, I've heard healings of deafness in 1 year, a growth on the back just vanishing and falling away, a beloved pet not eating, not walking, healed. And then just recently, a man healed in 24 hours of a broken wrist, and another man who had a foot condition, severe pain that had haunted him for many years to the point that he could not sleep, and it was healed. So this one infinite God that we've been exploring this afternoon heals today, just as 2,000 years ago. And through the lens of Christian Science, we can all see this, that we're not connected to this dust, not struggling to find our way through it, but that our real being, our nature, is that being, God. This is what Jesus was pointing to when he said, all things are possible to God. This law of possibility is still operating, still with us, and we can prove it for ourselves and our neighbors today in 2025, just as then. Yes, healing today.
Off camera? All right, you don't want me to do a swan dive?
I'm not sure which one of these is working. Oh, that one's working. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, everybody. By way of introduction, I didn't mention that the members and friends of First Church of Christ Scientists, South Lake Tahoe, bring you these summits. We hope to bring you another one, but we appreciate you all coming. We're going to take a 15-minute break. There's some goodies back in the Sunday school that you're welcome to, and then we will resume. So, thank you. Hello? Hello? Hey, it's working. I don't know if this is the primary or the backup. Welcome back, Steep. For those of you who don't know my friend Steep, he is the Committee on Publications for Northern Nevada, or for all of Nevada. So, and we communicate often. Our church is in California, and Marianne and I live in Nevada, so I have 2 COPs that I answer to. 3 if you count Marianne. So I apologize for the heat in here. I opened the windows during the break to let it cool off a little bit, but we can't really have the windows open while we're trying to record because we'll then pick up all the outside noise. So take a breath and be cool. We're going to launch into Mr. Alexandre's talk, but before we do that, Mr. Brewis has a song that he's written just for Alex, and he will do that, and then we'll properly introduce Alex, and at the end of Alex's talk, we'll have a longer break. You can stay as long as you want, but have a lobby in the Sunday school, and those that want to stay here, Andrew has a longer music program that he will tag at the end. So with that, Mr. Brewis.
My name is written in the stars, not by might but by your heart, not in power, not in fame, but in mercy and your name, but in mercy and your name, forever known, forever held. You call me yours, just as I am. You call me yours, just as I am. You call me yours. My name is written, my name is written in the stars. My name is written in the stars. Demons may flee, demons may fall, as I heed that higher call. No throne, no crown, no battle scars. I am yours no matter. I am yours no matter. You call me yours, just as I am. You call me yours, just as I am. You call me yours. My name is written, it's written in the stars. My name is safe in heaven's light. You hold it close, you hold it tight. I am free, I am found, I am loved by who you are. You call my name, just as I am. You call me yours, just as I am. You call me yours. My name is written. My name is written in the stars.
Thank you, Mr. Brewis. Avec plaisir, je présente Monsieur Alexandre Fischer from Gand, France. I had to learn how to say it because we all wanted to say Gan. So Alex is back with us again, like Patty is back with us again, to give us more inspiring thought. The title of his speech, of his lecture, is How Spiritual Perception Brings Health. And so with that, Monsieur.
Well done, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon in the room, and good afternoon at home, or in the car, or in the train. So what we'll do is we'll pick up where Patty left us. And if you're watching this as a replay, you're free to keep watching, obviously, but just like if you know a movie's in two parts, you may start with the first part and then go to the second part. It's Patty Woodard, and you'll find it on the website there. So where did Patty take us? Well, she took us where it's about thinking out of the box and being out of the box. We know a bit about Mary Baker Eddy, and then possibly we've been, wow, this healing. Wow, another one. Wow. And so we know that with God, everything is possible. So for this part 2, let's keep building on it and trying to understand really how it works. First, I'll do a bit of a boring history. Well, not really boring, but when you announce history, and then we'll go on. So we have the Bible right there, and we feel, well, it's normal to have the Bible. But for centuries, the Bible was hidden in the back of the church, hidden behind Latin or other languages, so people did not have access to the Bible. So they had to trust what other people were saying about what Jesus said. But now we have the Bible, so we can really look into it and see for ourselves. And when we look at it, the second part are the Gospels, and with Jesus' life. And if you look at it, almost like a school homework, okay, what is in there? And you have to be blown away. This is just really, really interesting, because you see two things among many. One, you see many, many healings, which is why Patty had so many healings. But then you see what Jesus says about those healings. And basically, Jesus says that whoever understands who he is, whoever understands his teaching, his spirituality, will be able to heal as he did. Leprosy, blindness, any challenges, it is possible if we understand who he was and his teaching. And here's the history part. Well, if you continue in the Bible, you can see that Jesus' students, the disciples, were people like you and me, tax collectors and fishermen, but they find themselves healers. Once they followed the great master, heard what he said, understood, well, they found themselves as healers. And then you put the Bible on the table there and then continue with history, and we can see that for about 3 centuries, and how do I know? Well, because you got writings from the 1st century and 2nd century in history, and you can see that for about 3 centuries up to the 325, early 4th century, that people would find out about Jesus' teachings and would be healed. It would be natural to have the teachings, understanding who he was, and healing. They went together as much as a fire and heat go together. You don't have heat without the fire, or you don't have fire without the heat. Healing and healing. And then about 325, it looks like there's no more healings, and or at least in books and writing from the time, healing disappears. It's not there for centuries. Which is why Patty told us about Mary Baker Eddy, who, in a most humble way, was healed again, reading the scripture, again, going to the core of Jesus' spirituality, and in the most humble way, felt, well, maybe history is right, that indeed we can heal. Indeed we can heal. For those of you in the room, sorry guys in the box, we're standing there in a Christian Science church. And you know, when Mary Baker Eddy had her discovery, she had no intention to create an organization. Far from it. She knew what had happened. She knew what happened early on with those beautiful, pure Jesus teachings. And then a church was built, and then a hierarchy. Well, I'm number one, you're number two, sorry. And then, and on and on and on. And then that was kind of the insulation around the fire. You could not feel the heat anymore. It became involved in politics. The emperor was involved with deciding what was right and wrong in the scripture, and so on and so on. So the last thing Mary Baker Eddy wanted to do was to create an organization. But then eventually she had to have some form of organization, and you're sitting in one right here, and I bet at home there is one not so far from you. But you know, some time ago I was talking to a friend about the Christian Science Church, explaining what it is, and she listened to me. She says, well, okay, so no dogmas, so you don't have like a set of belief that you have to believe, and really no priest. There's not a number one in your church. Are you really serious? Like, is democracy? Everyone is equal? You have readers reading text. You don't take position on abortion or gay marriage. It's all left to everyone's individual prayer and best sense. It's about sharing healings. So it's not a church, it's a spiritual co-op. and I think that's kind of true. It is a spiritual co-op. Or maybe it's really the true nature of church, when we're all together, you know, advancing as best as we can understand, and then each other helping each other, but we're all on a journey. So I did promise that we'd talk about how healing works, so let's get started. What I'll do is I'll give a bit of the theory, just the principles, then I'll give examples to go deeper. To be honest, I don't expect that you'll accept the principle right away, because they're kind of really challenging. Patty told us it's out of the box. It's not something common, but they're important to understand and to accept. Even Mary Baker Eddy, in her book, sometimes she makes a statement and she says, I know you'll be reluctant to accept this, still this is really important. So what are the principles? It's all going back to Jesus' teachings, away from politics, away from you do this, you don't do this, you should be this way or this way. This is pure spirituality. If you take an unbiased look at Jesus' teachings, one could not help noticing that Jesus keeps talking about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. It's pages after pages. It comes back, and you have 4 Gospels, in case you missed something. So it's really very, very present. And unlike the belief of the time, where people felt that, yes, there must be some kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven somewhere in the future, Jesus says, no, it is right here, right now. Let's pause for half a second. What does the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven means? Well, we have to understand what God means. If I was to say the word apple right now, and I just did, I'm sure you would see maybe a green apple or red apple, but we all see a fruit. We not see a truck or a tree. When I said God a few seconds ago, I mean, it could be everything. Everything could be something that I really don't mean God is. Just To clarify, the God of the Bible is life, and it is universal life. It is not the God of someone who happens to have the God in his little chapel and the other one don't have it. It is really universal life. Truth, because it is real. It is life. And love, because it is what sustains us, what governs us, and certainly not what punishes us. It's infinite love. The book Science and Health, which you've seen in part 1, continues. It doesn't replace the Bible, obviously. It's more like a magnifying glass, really, so you can look at the Bible text and have those big healing ideas come out. And in it, you can see God as principle. Not the principle of mathematics, but principle as reliable. So this life, love, is reliable, is always present. Soul. And then I think it's a fun exercise to look at the Bible and to find other ways to describe God. Shepherd, Father. And each word has a special meaning that makes a sense of God come out more clearly. So Father, Mother feels close. Shepherd, you have a sense of guidance. So going back to our kingdom of heaven. So when Jesus says the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, it's all about God's presence. That, as the Apostle Paul says, in God we live and move and have our being. The big lie of existence is a life separated from God. It's like all of us being fish in the ocean and say, well, we don't believe in the water. No, there is no water. I've never seen the water, and water is... No, if we're all fish, well, God would be the ocean. So what does Jesus mean when he says the kingdom of God is right here, right now? Well, it means that everything expresses love. Everything is harmony. Everything is pure, perfect, complete. And that includes all of us. And this explains how healing worked. People push back on him and say, well, no, the kingdom of God will come later. And Jesus says, no, it is now. And maybe they pushed him too much. So in the end, he says, well, the kingdom of God is within you. So how close is that? Within you. We are the expression of God. Doesn't it sound good that everything is love, everything is harmony? I would not blame you if one of you said, well, did he watch the news this morning? Because I mean, in all due respect, didn't sound like love and harmony. Well, Jesus addresses this point. Talking about evil, Jesus did not ignore evil or say it's not there or, yeah, everything is fine and it's okay, it's probably good. No. He used a very specific term. And I do realize that Jesus did not speak English nor Greek, that were working from translations. But still, the term, the very specific term that emerged is the concept of a lie. Jesus calls evil a lie. What is a lie? Well, a lie is something that feels real, that feels threatening possibly, that feels big, makes us feel small. But if it's a lie, that's fine, because once we know the truth about the lie, well, that truth frees us up. Plus, we realize that we were never in danger in the first place because we just got caught up in the lie. It's a bit like darkness and light. Is there a battle between darkness and light? Well, there is no battle really if a room is very dark and you turn the light on. Well, it's not that the darkness disappears, because in the first place, darkness is not something. Darkness is just the absence of light. It's an absence. So it's almost like Jesus telling us, evil is an absence. He says, yes, it feels very big and real, but it is an absence. And that's the way to heal it. So we'll go into the healing in 1 second. But just the mechanism is this, is that not me speaking, but Jesus speaking, says that we are all at one with God. Patty reminded us, we are children of God. It means that our nature is spiritual, is pure. We're far from being sinners. We're pure, complete. This is who we are. And what about the image in the mirror? Well, that's the lie. The lie of limitations, of past mistakes, of possibly a diagnosis, of possibly wrong choices, of hopelessness. That's the lie. And how do we deal with the lie? Well, Patty told us it's about prayer. Prayer. And prayer is really being more aware of the truth of our being. And I promise I'll go into healing now. But when we become more aware of the truth of our being, the truth of any situation, well, our consciousness changes. We become more aware of God's presence. And that change in consciousness is what we call healing. So let's go into the healing now. And again, I picked that one up, not that you need another healing, because we had enough with Patty. Now we know he works and it's reliable. But I picked that one because I thought it was a good one just to show how Christian Science treatment work, which is another word for prayer, this systematic prayer that expects healing. So some years ago, I found myself with a growth on the leg that was painful, and so painful that I ended up with crutches. So I was not too worried, and I was praying about it, and I had so many healings in my life, spiritual healing through Christian Science, that didn't come to my thought to rush to a doctor. Actually, I'd never taken a pill in my life, and I was really expecting healing there. But at the time, in our house was living a friend who really didn't share my view on spiritual healing and those weird stuff, as he said, and came to a point of being very, very afraid and concerned for me, and really begged me to see a doctor. And I could see the fear. And so, you know, another teaching of Jesus is love, 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 love. What is there but love? That's the only purpose of life. So I told her, I said, well, fine, I'll go see a doctor tomorrow. It was easy because France has many compulsory laws about medical examination and stuff, and my kids were due to a medical school exam, so I had to go see the local doctor, give the result to the local school. So it was happening the next day anyway, so I said, fine, I'll go see the doctor tomorrow, and if it makes you more happy. And it made her more happy. You could see that the fear was gone. She felt, give me a hug, and it was just wonderful. So, love. So the next day, the examination with the kids went well, like every year, healthy, happy kid, and all good. And then I said, well, doctor, and I said, could you look at my leg? And so she said, well, go sit on this thing, and lay down and show my leg. And she got very, very concerned. And she said, well, we have to have this course of medical treatment. She thought another one would not work, so she had an idea of a course of medical action that could be taken. So I listened to her, and I didn't feel it was the right time to have a big discussion about God and healing, so I just said, well, doctor, if I don't take the prescription, what would happen? And yes, a silly question. And she said, well, I'll see you in the emergency room. That's it. So I walked home with more pain, and arrive home. And I picked this example for all of us to think, well, what would we do in this situation? What would we do? So as here I was sitting on my sofa, knowing that this dear, reassured family member would come in the evening saying, oh, how did it go? What are you doing? And me there with more pain and concern, because I didn't do it here, but the graphics of what would happen if I didn't take the pills were not something that was more like a horror movie, and not something nice. So I was sitting there really full of fear. Well, the first thing I reminded myself is that, of course, life is wonderful and beautiful when you live your life out of the box, but you can choose to be in the box, including the box of pill. That's fine. We're free. That's the one thing with this book, true with the Bible too, but Science and Health offers and reveals more freedom. It's a book about freedom. It's not putting into a box. The whole point is to remove boxes. So why am I saying this? Because I realized that even if I had never taken any pill in my life, that I could take the pill. It was fine. I could do it. I go to the pharmacy and take the prescription. And to be honest, it released some pressure because I had not realized it, but I put myself some pressure. Well, I will not take the pill again because I felt, no, let's be humble. Just really think through it. Quickly, I came to the conclusion that I could be healed again, that everything is possible with God. And also I realized that I had learned, really going back to Mary Baker's amazing life, and we're not doing any justice by the few minutes we talk about her. And you'll find biographies about her that really render justice to her. So just another little small part of her life where basically early on, and we're talking 1870, 1860, where she did realize the impact of thought on the body. At the time, it was not called placebo effect. Now it's called placebo effect when someone feels he's taking a pill and is not taking any pill, still is getting some results. So she saw the impact of homeopathy on the body, and she studied those things. But her massive revelation is not about just changing belief. It's not about being in the box and exchanging one pill for the other. It's a completely different way of looking at us, and now we know it's about seeing our perfection, our wholeness, completely spiritually. So why am I saying this? Well, because I did realize that even if I took the pills, they would just replace a belief about my health with another belief. It would just still be staying in the same challenge. It was still seeing myself as mortal, full of challenges, but it would not really go to the core of the challenge, would not really unroot any false belief I had about myself, which is the healing. Challenges always feel like there's something out there. A challenge always seems to be a bad boss there, or a bad government, or a bad war, or a symptom on the body. Challenges always seem to be out there, but they're always within consciousness, within our thought. Wait a minute, we're not the cause of challenges. How could pure love, pure perfection cause any darkness? Light doesn't create darkness. But when we're working a challenge in Christian Science, it is never about fixing something out there, because there is nothing out there. It's always within consciousness, where a belief, a false sense of ourselves, gets completely wiped out and transformed by a clear spiritual sense. So you see, it's not about moving beliefs, it's about getting a clear sense of our identity. So with all this, I decided that not to take the pills and continue with a spiritual approach. Some years ago, there was an article published in the Lancet, which is a medical magazine, well-known English magazine, and they had a neuroscientist section, neurology section, and they were asking themselves the question about what is reality, what we see, what is reality. And they had a quote in there that really caught my attention, and they said, and I quote from the magazine, they said, "Is the whole material world," the doctor speaking, "is the whole material world nothing more than a dream?" End of quote. They were pointing to the sense of the world seems physical, the world seems to be material, but it is really a point of view, a material point of view. They say matter is a concept in quantum physics. It is what seems to be physical is really an expression of consciousness. I picked up on the idea of the dream because science and health does the same thing, that to describe the nature of what seems to be daily experience, they say it's a dream. So when we're in a dream, we do feel in pain in the dream. It's not that the pain doesn't exist, but we know it's a dream, and the solution is to wake up from the dream. So here I was sitting on the sofa wanting to be woken up. I realized that I had so much fear in my thought that I could not properly handle my own case, that I could not think straight. I was so afraid with the graphic description of what would happen if I didn't take the prescription. And I had pain. So I called a Christian Science practitioner for help, who is basically someone like you. Someone who loved those ideas, or possibly loved those ideas, and practices them, with maybe the exception is that a Christian Science practitioner is someone who does that, he or she, all day long, all night long, which we may not be willing to do today, at least. I was not given any opinions. No one told me, oh, you should take the pills and not take the pills. You should not do this. The practitioner didn't have any of this. Remember, this is what lost Jesus' spirituality in the first place, when he became human. So it's completely spiritual. So he reassured me, gave me some beautiful spiritual ideas, reminding me about my wholeness, and then got to pray. Just after the phone call, I could feel the fear diminishing, and a bit of a sense of joy coming. I still have some pain, I still have my crutches, but it was better. I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a second. You can see my background as a lawyer. Just for a second, I'll play the devil's advocate on this healing, just to say something there. For 3 days, devil advocate says, for 3 days, nothing happened. Well, I had a bit less pain, so I could somewhat walk in a way that maybe avoided the question from the family member, but the challenge was still there. For 3 days, physically, everything was identical. I mean, I didn't spend my time looking at the growth, but for 3 days, everything was identical. And you can imagine after the first day, oh yeah, I've prayed about it, and well, okay, still there. Okay, I'll call the practitioner again. He's amazing, I'm sure. The second day, yeah, it's good, but And then the third day, well, I'm ready to give up. Maybe I should do something else. Remember, it's from a material perspective. There is no real devil any more than any real evil. It's just an image. It's from a material perspective. And how often, when we pray about something, we're sidetracked by the challenge or the appearance, even expecting healing. Say, oh, I'll know that I prayed well when I pray, and then the boss is nice, or the money is back, or the symptom is gone. And that's fine, but he does one thing. He just delays the healing. Why? Because the healing happens in consciousness. It doesn't happen there. What ultimately will be a physical healing, the woman not drowning, the horse being healed, the cancer leaving. What ultimately will be the physical healing is really an outgrowth of what happens in consciousness. This is where it happens. This is where the lies gets removed and replaced by the truth of our being. So let's make a promise to ourselves never to be distracted or tempted by the decoy. The decoy is the challenge out there. What we look at is as thought. So enough of the devil's advocate. Let's go with what happened actually. Well, I'll talk about 3 days. For 3 days, even after the first day, I said the fear began to leave. And there was a massive change in thoughts. There was more joy. There was a clearer sense of God. And in this case, it doesn't have to be in all cases, but many misconceptions that I accepted came to the surface of thought. Some anger that I was clinging to, some resentment about a situation at church, some things that I didn't think I wanted to think about, but the more I became still, the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. The more I became still, Psalm 46, the more I became still, those ideas came. So for 3 days, it felt, and for lack of a better image, it felt like a washing machine. I was being washed and washed and washed, not me physically, obviously, but thinking was getting clearer, more divine, deeper. A lot was going on. This is why you lose devil's advocate. A lot was going on. A lot was going on. There is more to the healing and more ideas, but our key learning here is that let's focus on consciousness. This is where it happens. Let's not worry about the dog that barks there. Let's just stay there. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, I was asked to play a baseball game with friends, and I accepted, and we do play some baseball in France. And as you know, 3 hours of running around, and At the time I was at left field and I was still running around. And don't remember if I lost or won the game, but what I know is I was free. I was free. And it may surprise you only now, but in a second it won't be. The week after I noticed, taking a shower, I noticed that the growth was nowhere to be seen. The 2 legs were perfect and no trace whatsoever, and no pain for a long time. When I mentioned this healing to our immediate neighbor, who is a medical doctor, a dear friend, and don't know how it came up, but I think she was saying something about the impact of thought on her patients. I felt, I can say something. So I explained a few things and I shared the healing, and she was puzzled. She was really puzzled because she heard the symptoms and she said, even if you had followed this prescription, the thing would have not gone that fast. And then she said, without the prescription, the thing could not go anyway. Its course of action was to grow and grow and grow and grow. So as you can imagine, she got very, very, very interested. So we got to talk about God as not punishing us, God as the ever-present source of good that we can always rely on. If we're living in chaos, we could ignore mathematics, but once we rely on mathematics, it changes our life. Things are orderly and they work. Mathematics were always there, but we can say, well, I don't believe in mathematics. I like my little chaos. And so you see, it's not about God. It's about us welcoming this, yes, out of the box idea about spiritual healing and health. Why didn't I notice the growth gone immediately? Why it took me a week to look at it? Well, I think you know the answer. I was not looking at the body. I was looking at consciousness, and this is how we gauge our progress. Whatever we're working on, maybe we're worried about the government. We feel, well, there's such a bad government. Or we're worried about our neighbor because he can see it's an amazing government. I'm worried about him. And whatever the source of worry, can be anything. The progress will not be a letter for the neighbor saying, yeah, I'm changing my political view, or a letter for the government says, okay, well, I will love everybody now, or whatever. The progress will be in our thought. Do we have more fear, less fear? Is there any belief to let go of? This is where it happens, which is why I did not look at the leg. What would I have done to look at the leg? If on the fourth day, or on the day of the baseball call, I say, oh, they want me to go play baseball. Yeah, I'd better check. Can I go? What happened if I do this? Again, it's all about freedom. I could have done it. It's like a science. I mean, the science can do whatever you want to do, and you have your results. What happened if I focus on the challenge, if I look at the leg? Well, it's not the physical act of looking at the leg, it's what it does to thought. Suddenly I focus on it, and suddenly I remember how mortal, small, sinner, limited I am, where my entire spiritual unfoldment was to realize that we're not sinners. We are whole, complete, perfect. So you want to keep your thought pure and whole. And healing is always an outgrowth consciousness. So we call it healing, but it's really the side effect of the healing. The healing is really what happens in thought. Sometimes it's very quick, and it looks like Jesus was so aware of his oneness with infinite and so aware of everyone's perfection that it didn't take time when someone was coming to see him and it was like a leper or something, and Jesus said, well, do we know this guy? Did he pay his taxes? And no, Jesus was so clear that we are always whole, always complete, always pure, that he didn't have to work things out, apparently, because all his healing were, in almost all cases, instantaneous. And for you online or here, if we read about other healings from other people practicing this beautiful science, you'll find that sometimes the healing is very quick, and sometimes, there are a bit of belief to be worked out. Mary Baker Eddy talks about the tenacity of evil, the tenacity of the lie, but if you look at the actual quotes, she says, well, nothingness has no tenacity. What has more tenacity? The belief that 1 + 1 = 3, or what has more tenacity is the fact that 1 + 1 = 6,333,000. Well, they don't have any tenacity. Anyone coming in and say 1 + 1 = 2 will have the healing, will see the truth, and their life will be back to normal. So it's always some form of belief, fear that we seem to entertain and that needs to be let go of. But as part one of the movie, I don't want to keep saying Patty because I feel I'm put her on the spot. So part one of the movie brilliantly reminded us Christian Science is an amazing scientific divine method of healing. And still, that's not the point. As Andrew, so that's the musician, if you forgot, reminded us with his song, our names are written in the stars. Our names are written in heaven. Go back to the Bible. So the real deal is to understand more our oneness with the infinite, that actually we are limitless. We're the very image of God. We are the very expression of perfection. That's who we are. That's the exciting thing, which I think maybe why Jesus was not happy with the disciples when they say, oh, Jesus, this is wonderful. When the disciples came back to Jesus saying, well, people are healed. It's wonderful. And Jesus did not say, well, you're amazing. You were just fishermen, tax collectors. Now you're healing others. We'll change the world. Come have a big hug. No, it doesn't say this at all. It does say that, he almost scolded them, saying, rejoice not in the healing. But wasn't he, in a way, preserving those healings? He says, do not rejoice that the growth is gone. Your whole point was to realize that you never lived in matter. Your whole point was to realize that you were always whole, always complete. That was the healing. So I don't think he was scolding them, or it was out of love. But just like a math teacher would say, kids, I know you think it, but the earth is just not flat. It is round. No, it is flat. No, it is round. But it was just out of love, because Jesus was just about love and love and love and love and love. So you see the potential he has for any challenge, including challenge with things that we cannot touch. A war out there, I mean, if there's a war somewhere, we get very concerned, and we may well do, and many of us do it, to send some money and offer some assistance in some way, but there's some things that, we can, even humanly, we can't do anything about it. But we can always pray about it. A little refresher from our part one, the mechanism is this indeed, the mechanism of healing, and I'll share a healing of a different sort. The mechanism is this. We face a challenge. It can be war out there. Not that we're really touched by that war, but we may be very nervous about it, or it may really get at us. So whatever the challenge is. So the situation is this. So there's a challenge out there, it seems, somewhere. It does something to our thoughts. It does bring fear, concern. That's kind of the pack of the belief. The healing will not be saying, oh, it's all fine, or God will take care of it. The healing is that this belief we're clinging to will be destroyed as much as the light destroys darkness. No real distraction, because, again, darkness is not something. But those beliefs will disappear when a Christ idea, a spiritual idea, some people call them angels, something coming to our consciousness will bring the truth, will bring light to that belief. We may feel very guilty about something. Well, maybe an idea, if we feel very guilty, an idea of innocence will come to our thought. And that Christ idea will take over our consciousness. This idea of perfection, innocence, will become even more real than whatever belief we're holding on to, up to the point where the belief disappears and the only thing we can be aware of is that truth. But you see, this is why it's not positive thinking or anything else. It's not us trying to do something. It is really revelation. Again, be still and know that I am God. True, sometime when we have a challenge, we may feel we have to argue that, no, I know God is here, and we find ourselves in a car accident. No, I know God is here, God is life. And that's okay, this form of mental argument. But this book, Science and Health, which really is a book on healing, going back to the Bible, says that the mental argument doesn't heal. It just allows us to hear, to listen better. So you see, it's always that Christ idea that dissolves the belief that heals. It's not us doing something. Or we do something as much as we listen. It's about listening. So other healing to illustrate how we can be spiritual activists. How when we see challenges in the world that we feel we cannot touch, that our prayer, our awareness, this method of listening, this method of being aware of God's presence have a massive impact. It's a small example, but I think it'll be a good illustration. So my sister and I were driving small motorcycles some years ago, and we had to do some shopping and had to go to a store to buy some stuff. And the store that was making sense to go to was the store that was just really nearby, and there was another store far away. You would ask, well, why didn't you go to the first store, and why is it even an issue? Well, the issue was that this store was a place where people don't go normally, not from my neighborhood, because there is belief of crime, poverty, and the belief at the time is that if you go into there with your bike, you can come out, but you'll come out without your bike, basically. That was the kind of the bad stuff going on. So people don't go. But my sister and I had been attending diligently the spiritual co-op Sunday school, church Sunday school. And so we did not want to put a label on those guys. We did not want to hold them as, oh, it's the crime, poverty, and those things. So we did not want to be brave, but it felt, no, you know what? Let's go into that store. Well, it's short hammers anyway. So we go into this store. We parked our little motorcycles there in front of the store. We go in for not very long, do our stuff, and come out and ready to go home. And as we try to start the motorcycles, they just don't start. Mine doesn't start, my sister's doesn't start, so we wonder what's happening. We noticed a group of young guys kind of goggling and just looking at us and looking and not looking and stuff, and they're back against the wall and didn't say anything. And we looked, and then I found that this particular type of motorcycle, not the best, but had a little piece of the engine that could be cleaned easily. So to make it easily cleanable, it was really easy to unscrew, but also to steal. And I looked, and they were missing. So there was no way we could use those back. They were just like now very heavy bicycles. So again, if we take this as a homework, as an exercise here, either here in the room or there at home, what do you do? What do you do? You got those guys there, and maybe you don't feel like you got a black belt in karate or something, or don't feel, let me not be too wise. And what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Well, with God, everything is possible. But again, it is not about asking a God somewhere who's not there. God is everywhere. It's not a person or thing out there. It's really become aware of God's presence, as we've seen. So the first thought that came, remember the Christ idea. And the Christ idea comes as sometimes a pure spiritual idea, a sense of innocence. Your wife says, oh, you cannot trust this guy. And you feel, I don't know why, I feel I can trust him. I trust him. So it can come as a spiritual idea or sometimes as a step. And those who don't believe in the ocean say, well, it's just intuition, gut feeling. I had a friend who was a Supreme Court justice in France, and then saying of himself, I'm really atheist. So he liked me, but don't mess up with me with religion or anything else. And a lovely man. And then one day in the news came out a really big decision from the Supreme Court, and I knew he was part of it. So I asked him, I said, well, but John, how could you make such a complex decision? It was just, legally was so intricated. And he said, well, what I do when it's really hard, I really look for my intuition. And then I validate this intuition with legal reasoning. This is key because this is not a new, cool healing religion, and then they have the truth and too bad for the others. This is about universal principles. Jesus' left and right was not about making clubs. He was always embracing everyone. His image about loving the other, he picked the Samaritan, the enemy of the Jews, to make a point about who is the most loving. People may not have been happy about this. So it is not about the truth and they don't have it. It's really about universal principle, which is why this Chief Justice, this justice, it was not Chief Justice, this justice could follow his intuition. And that's fine to him. It was something they didn't create, a right idea, a right step that came to his thinking, and he was wise enough to listen to it. For image purposes, we do say the Christ come to consciousness, we have to explain things, but really, it is our nature. We are the Christ expressed. Another term for the Christ is our spiritual nature. So it is really already part of our consciousness. You may feel it's coming, but it's more like we now hear it. It's as if you had the truth about something, but you were not very loud, so you would have the truth about something, and all of us get very noisy and we talk and stuff. You're still speaking the truth. No one pays attention. We have no idea what you're saying, but when we get very quiet, can you say the truth? Can you say a truth?
A truth?
No, say something that is a truth. A truth.
Okay. Black is black.
And now we heard it. So for you, those online, she said black is black. It doesn't matter. The point is, it was a very soft voice, but all of us heard it. Why? Because we were quiet. What is loud in thought? Ego. I know how to fix this. I'm going to tell God. Or fear. Or I'm so small and worthless. It's the same thing. Big ego, I'm worthless, the same challenge. All those things are noise in thought. This is why Christian Science treatment, this form of prayer. Jesus says when you pray, pray, Our Father which art in heaven. Let's go of all those garbage in thought, all this darkness, to have really the truth emerging. So again, for image purposes, we say that Christ comes to consciousness, that idea, but it's already there. This is who we are, just that we got to hear it. So I know you want to know about the bikes, I know, but I'll tell you. So the first thought that came was a human step. We got very quiet with my sister, and no intent to talk to them. The first thought that came was a human step, and it became clear to us not to engage in eye-to-eye contact with them. We didn't ask why, but that's the thing, is that Christian Science helps us value our intuition, value those angels, value the Christ coming to thought, so we obey it. This is obeying God. The first duty is to obey God. And obeying God is listening to our inner voice. And that changes the life. So we just kind of looked down and we kind of moved away and turned our back to them. They were in the back there, still doing whatever. And we began to pray. I'm not clear how my sister prayed. I mean, she told me after, but prayer is never a little piece of paper where, you say a prayer. You don't go to Patty and say, how do you pray about this amazing healing? Tell me what your prayer was, because it was so amazing, and it was. How did you do it? No, because prayer is fresh inspiration. It comes from the Christ. Again, it's not some form of right thinking. So it's always fresh. So the way my sister prayed was her unique way, and what it did, it dissolved fear, concern that she may have. They were very unique to our consciousness. Salvation is an individual thing. There is no group salvation. Which is why in its purest expression, the spiritual co-op / Christian Science Church doesn't say you should think this about gay, you should think this about abortion, you should think this about politics, because this is unfoldment for all of us. It's between us and God. What came to me amongst other ideas, and to make it short, was really the idea of innocence. That all those guys were innocent. That yes, the human picture was poverty, crime, and for a long time, but I did not have to accept this. And I knew that taking a stand for spiritual truth, for reality, would make a difference. if I may remind ourselves again for a second, because what would happen if I filled my thought with anger, resentment, and self-blame? There was a store over there, we should have gone to that store. What would it do to my thought? Well, I would be filled with darkness. And I don't know what the outcome would be, but probably walking home. So the Christ idea that came was really one of innocence. I didn't make it up. It was just as you got very quiet, an idea come. And the idea of innocent, that they were innocent. I'm not saying that blood and flesh are innocent. I'm saying that in their pure expression, they were the very image of God, and innocence and purity was and is their being, what they're made of. The rest is just a perspective. We talked about a dream. Another way to say it is a perspective, a wrong perspective. We can all remember, or I think of times where we got the wrong perspective on something, and we felt back then that this wrong perspective was really the truth. We may even like, well, yeah. Later on, we find out that it was the wrong perspective. We found the true perspective. But there is only one reality. And I do believe that if Jesus was there, he would say, I told you all the time, the kingdom of God is here now. Because that's what he kept saying in the Gospels. So there's only one reality. But you can have different perspective on it. You can have a wrong perspective and the right perspective. In the human experience, there's only one earth. But you can have the right perspective of it, it is round, or a wrong perspective, it's flat. But you don't have two earths, a flat one and a round one. There's only a round one. So this idea of innocence became very vivid in my thought, and I almost felt ashamed that for all those years, I did make the jokes about, well, don't use a bicycle there, you may find yourself on foot after. And it was a clearing of thought, really to remove the label of those people and this whole neighborhood as really, and those guys in particular, as the very image of innocence. And you'll see that with practice, then it becomes more and more tangible, more and more vivid in our thoughts. It seems that from an early age on, we used to really rely on the physical senses. If I see it, it must be true. If I heard it, we're trained to use the physical senses as the proof of what is. Jesus tells us to rely on spiritual sense, that sense that is guided by the Christ. My point here is that what we feel, we perceive spiritually can be as tangible as this table. But it's all mental, it's all spiritual. And how do we know it's tangible? Well, we feel a sense of peace, we feel a sense of joy, a sense of conviction, and that's very, very tangible. Just like love, when you love, if you tell someone, well, I love you, I really love you. So, well, show me a picture of your love. Well, it's hard. Still, love is tangible. And with this, with seeing their innocence and my sister praying too, we had a great sense of peace. We felt very peaceful. And that's a small indicator that a treatment, a Christian Son's prayer, this awareness is done when we really have this sense of peace, this sense of joy, when we're not concerned anymore. We just feel this deep, deep peace. I remember looking at her because I could tell that she had her eyes open, and me too, and we're been standing for a while watching in the distance those guys in the back, and I felt, well, what do we do? So as I was trying to communicate with her, we heard a sound on the floor, and we heard, trying to do it like ding, 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 a metal sound on the floor behind us, and I just turned around, I just saw a guy coming back into the group, and they just had thrown out the two little pieces of metal from the engines. So being obedient to God, we didn't look at them, which I just said, thank you, and put them back on, and then we left. And then we left. It was a complete healing. So we didn't walk home. Again, I let you, just as scientists, as spiritual scientists, I let you make your own hypothesis. What would have happened if I had harbored resentment and anger and those things? What would have happened? we don't create evil. If someone robs a bank out there, we don't go, oh my gosh, I was really mean to my neighbor, that's why they robbed a bank. It's my thought. That would be quackery. All we say is that when the challenge comes, we can look at consciousness, because this is where the healing happens. So if we summarize about healing, it is really not about us doing something. It is us, thanks to part one, being willing to say, with God, everything is possible. And they may think we're crazy because people told us, no, this is a diagnosis. This is hopeless. So the first step is, it is possible. And the rest is between God and us. It's really welcoming that Christ idea in thought that will dissolve the challenge. And the amazing book, Science and Health with the Scriptures, and by the way, there's a free copy for those of you in the room. Oh, what about you? Well, I'm sure there's a reading room nearby. They're spoiled here because they're free today there, but try your chance with the local reading room, but it's worth the price. So the rest is between us and God. And in Science and Health, there is a chapter on prayer that will just give us the food we need to really clarify this sense of prayer and how it works. So it is never how severe the challenge is how big our awareness of God is. If we're on the highway, it's not how severe the rain is, it's how thick the windshield is. That's the real question. And light is always thicker than darkness. One last word maybe about Jesus' teachings. Indeed, he does talk about the kingdom of God, but he does talk about sin quite a bit too. And this has opened a big mess in theologies. And people thinking, oh, you are all sinners and you're condemned. And so we have to clarify this thing. And I'll use an example. Some years ago, a while back, a dear friend was really, I learned later, because at the time he was so ashamed that he didn't tell anyone, but felt so full of shame and so guilty, and that he didn't tell anyone. He'll be healed, and I'll tell you about it. And but he felt condemned. He felt I'm a sinner, and it was really, really hard. So in his case, he was starting an addiction, even pre-teen, and start continuing into young adulthood. And in his case, it was an addiction to pornography. He'll be healed, but the first and the big part of the healing will be not counseling, not other ideas. I mean, it's fun to do this, but again, we look at consciousness, is when he realized that he's not a sinner. The actual Bible says that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. The term sin is an old Greek term, and it was an archery term, meaning missing the mark. So it's not about blame, not about shame. I mean, interpretation after that have made us sinners, or temptation to think we're sinners. It's about missing the mark. And what does bring us back? Well, the Christ, this true idea that puts us back on track. In a way, and that would be the Christian Science view, seeing those guys as, the motorcycle guys, seeing those guys as thieves and poorly educated would have been a sin on my part to accept that they were anything less than God. But it's not me being a sinner in a blame way, just it was missing the mark of their identity. So going back to my friend there, when he realized that, yes, maybe he had left the window open in full winter, so now it was really freezing in his house, an image of the house as consciousness, that yes, he had allowed all those suggestions about women and physical impulses take over his thoughts, then he was suffering the consequences of it. But he didn't feel like That was his nature, that we're not sinners, we're not guilty. And I would say that if there was one thing to remember for our discussion here, to write on a post-it, is we are not guilty. We are not guilty. We are not guilty. Because how often we are working something out and we don't feel super guilty. We feel, well, I must have done something. I know we have this beautiful thing called the weekly Bible lesson, Christian Science, which is a weekly theme that you can look at the Bible. It's amazing. So maybe you think, well, I read the Bible lesson and this week was 6 sections and I only did 5 sections, which is why now I'm in trouble. You know, however stupid the thought can be, because evil is stupid, because God is mind, intelligence. So by nature, evil is stupid. You'll have to say, oh, you should not steal, and the guy is stealing stuff. The point is, evil is stupid, it has no intelligence. So we are not guilty. We're not guilty. And with my view, when I learned about this, to me, that was the healing, that now he was not ashamed anymore, feeling this is of my doing. If you really, in your house, especially here in Tahoe, in the winter, and you have the really bad idea to leave the window open in full winter, well, you're shaking and you're freezing, but you're not going, I'm so guilty because now everything is icy, or I know it's my fault. No, well, if you can still move a bit, which is not obvious, you go and you close the window. And the heat was on already, but now you have to mop the floor, I guess. But that's it. So the point, you see, we're not guilty. It doesn't mean we don't mess up. It doesn't mean we don't admit some stupid thoughts of pride and self-centeredness and whatever. But Jesus' message was that you don't have to accept it. You can close those windows and find your freedom of perfection and wholeness. So yes, we do pray about, back then, 4 years ago, about Adolf Hitler, and saying his perfection, his holiness. It was not agreeing with the evil acts of Adolf Hitler. That would be quackery and craziness. It was unseeing all those evil thoughts and acts as really the room of consciousness being full of ice, and saying, no, he has God's consciousness. He's the very expression of mind. And in our prayer, refusing to be a false witness to this man, I picked the most horrible man, how we would pray about him. It's different from forgiving, okay, well, that's okay, or kind of liking the guy with the evil. It is separating this lie about him to only embrace his perfection. From that point on, it was a quick healing with my friend. And again, let's remember, for years he had struggled and being sucked into those images, and sadly they're even more available now. And the last point of the healing, again, is all in thought, was he was struggling with physical impulses. He felt, no, I don't want to watch this thing. I don't like it. It's not right. But there's like an addiction to coffee or to cocaine or anything else. It was as if the body was saying, well, you got to follow me. But that's the beauty of Mary Baker's discovery, that our body is in our thoughts. What we accept about us, our limitation, is all there is to the body, which meant that to him, he was not a victim, that he could stand and say, no, I'm always responding to divine impulse, to the Christ. I am free now. I don't have to think it's normal. That's how men are. He felt a sense of freedom. And there was a complete healing, complete letting go of it. Just like sometimes you see people who are like heavy drinker and they says, I never had desire for a drop of alcohol ever again. I don't even like it, and I'll look at it. It was it. And even now, which is beautiful, he's helping others with this addiction so they can find their freedom too. So what do we have on our post-it? We are not guilty. We're not guilty. And I can almost hear you online. So as you can see, we could go on and on and on about Christian Science, explaining more, but hopefully for part one, you had all those healing and this depth of metaphysics, and now we've put even more on it to see how it's done. But the fact is it is our job to mow the lawn. No one else can do it for us. Jesus was the great example, showing us how to live our life. But then you have those two amazing books, the Bible and Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, just to begin on your journey, just to see, okay, what do I need to know and how can I find healing? And you'll find healing in your life, but also in your family, in your community, and in your world. Mary Baker said that happiness is not selfish. It cannot exist alone. Happiness is not selfish. It cannot exist alone. It's not about, oh, I don't need pills anymore. It's about, no, I find more of my identity, more of the fact that our names are written in the stars or in heaven. And that's the journey. When Mary Baker, this amazing woman, and I was surprised there are not more or any Mary Baker avenues, because that's amazing, but I'm sure she would not like it, because she spent her time saying, move away from my personality. It's all about the ideas. Follow me only as I follow Christ. She was most humble, most humble, most humble. And she kept studying Science and Health all her life. She kept studying it and studying it and studying it, studying it. So it's not about what someone tells us or what someone say we should do. It's about our spiritual growth. It's about discovering those ideas. So I'll finish with reading the Psalm 23, which in a way is a beautiful conclusion of our two talks. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Thank you. And I think we have more music now. And do take, on the way out there, if I can make an announcement, on the way out, there are 2 tables with goodies, the okay goodies and the amazing goodies. So the amazing goodies are copies of Science and Health, copies of the Bible, periodicals that you can go and pick for yourself. And the okay goodies, still delicious, are all the cookies and nice fruits. But do get a copy. It's free today. And tomorrow you have to pay for it, so I will take one today.
And some of Andrew's stuff, too.
What?
And some of Andrew's.
And some of the healing music of Andrew. Oh, it's you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
everybody.
thank you. I think it was a good duet. I think it was good.
As soon as the post-production work is done, the talk will appear like the other talks on our talksthatinspire.org website. Sometimes that's a day, sometimes that's a week, and sometimes it takes whatever it takes. So it'll be out there, trust us. Andrew's now going to take us out with some music. He's written 4 new pieces. You've heard 2 of them on this trip that I think he's on right now. It's amazing how he does it. And he has little 3x5 cards and a little notebook. He starts writing down some words. And yesterday he asked for some A4 paper. I go, no, you're in America, buddy. You want 8.5 by 11 paper. Anyhow, he just starts composing, and it works great. So I would invite you to stay and listen to Andrew's music. If you want to continue conversations, take those back to the reading room so they don't interfere with, to the Sunday school so they don't interfere with the music. And we can go, and I hope you all stay. Thank you very much for coming.
This follows straight on from Alex's reading. The Lord is my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me the quiet waters by. His goodness restores my soul. His goodness restores my soul. His goodness restores my soul. And I will trust in him. And I will trust in him. And I will trust in him. Though I walk in the darkest path, I will fear no evil. He guides my way in righteousness, anoints my head with oil. For you are with me, your rod and staff comfort me still. Yes, you are with me, that's all I need to know. And I will trust in him. And I will trust in him. You are with me. That's all I need to know. This came about after reading the words to Abide With Me. The light fades fast and the night is closing in. Feel the weight of the day that's been. But through the dark I hear you call my name. A whisper strong and a love that stays the same when shadows fall and I feel that hope is gone. I find my strength where you belong. Oh, stay with me, don't let me go. Through every high and every low, in a world that's changing fast, you're the one thing that will last. Through every rise and every fall, you're my constant through it all. You're the one thing that will last. Stay with me, my heart won't fear. Through every storm, I know that you are here. Through every tear, you're all I see. I know you'll always be here with me. Oh, stay with me, don't let me go. Through every high and every low, in a world that's changing fast, you're the one thing that will last. Through the fire and through the rain, where the old ways turn to dust, Still your love remains the same. From the first breath to the last, you're the one thing. You're the one thing. You're the one thing. You're the one thing that will last. I've been reading quite a lot of Mary Baker Eddy recently and loving those poems of hers. So this is another reworking of another Mary Baker Eddy hymn, Bless Christmas Morn. A golden light breaks through the sky. Love is shining. Love never dies. No more darkness, no more night. Christ is here. The truth so bright. Oh, the world may change and fade, but his love will never stray. Hope is born, the light is clear. Heaven's sun is drawing near. On this blessed Christmas morn, love is here. A child is born, not in matter, not in time, but in spirit's endless light. Every heart awake and free, every heart awake and free. The Christ is here. The Christ is here eternally. Not in manger, not in clay, but in love that lights the way. Peace unfolding, joy so true, God's own gift to me and to you. Oh, the world may change and fade, but his love will never stray. Hope is born, the light is clear. Heaven's song is drawing near on this blessed Christmas morn. The light is here, a child is born, not in matter, not in time, but in spirit's endless light. Every heart awake and free, every heart awake and free. The Christ is here. The Christ is here eternally. The Christ is here. Eternally. Okay, this is one song that isn't mine at all. But it's a beautiful message. Words and music by Fenella Bennett, CSB. Who's in the circle of love? I'm in the circle of love. This is the place that I love to be. 'Cause right here God's loving me. I'm in the circle of love? Who's in the circle of love? You're in the circle of love. No hurts, no tears, or sadness here, because God's love is always here. You're in the circle of love. You're in the circle of love. Safe in the circle of love. You're safe in the circle of love. Love is beneath, around and above. You'll never fall out of the arms of love. You're safe in the circle of love. We're safe, safe in the circle of love. We're safe, safe in the circle of love. I'm going to do an up-tempo one now to send you kind of away. Not to send you away, but send you away with the upbeat. Okay. This came out of singing I Know No Life Divided, Lord of Life from Thee. This is called I Know No Life Apart From You. My thanks to First Church Lake Tahoe for having me back again. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Is that 5 years in a row? I think it is. Beautiful part of the world, and I feel very uplifted this afternoon by those talks. So this is to send you home with a upbeat step. I walk this road, but not alone. Your love has made my heart a home. No fear can break the trust that we share. You're always here, you're always there. No walls between us, no space, no time. Your love surrounds me. Your light is mine. I know no life apart from you. No fear, no doubt, just love so true. You lift me up, you guide my way. I'm walking in your light each day. I'm walking, walking in your light each day. No storm can shake the peace I feel. Your presence holds and your grace is real. In every breath, in all I do, I live, I move, I'm one with you. I know no life apart from you. No fear, no doubt, just love so true. You lift me up, you guide my way. I'm walking, walking in your light each day. No night can hide the truth I see. Your love has set my spirit free. No past can hold, no chains remain. I rise, I shine, and I praise your name. I know no life apart from you. No fear, no doubt, just love so true. You lift me up, you guide my way. I'm walking, walking in your light each day. I'm walking, walking in your light each day. I'm walking, walking in your light each day. Everyone's looking very serious. We should all have smiles on our faces after that afternoon. Whoa, no life apart from you. No fear, no doubt, just love so true. You lift me up, you guide my way. I'm a walking in your light each day. I'm a walking in your light each day. I'm a walking in your light each day. Thank you very much.